The Honourable Senator Day. Here we go. Chers collègues.
Dear colleagues, I am truly astounded by all your kind words. On this, my last day in the chamber. I would like to begin my final speech by quoting two former colleagues from my province, New Brunswick, when they left. Senator Herminie Cohen and Senator Louis J. Robichaud.
Senator, must be some fog in here or some dust. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Sorry. Senator Herminie Cohen represented the same region of New Brunswick that I do, St. John, Kennebecasis. And in fact, I arrived here after her retirement, filling the seat she vacated. When she spoke for the last time in the Senate, Senator Cohen said, "I have come to think of the Senate and those who fill the benches on both sides as a unique community within this wonderful land." She was right. The Senate is a unique community, and we are all uniquely privileged to be part of that community. And as part of that community, we have an obligation, according to Senator Cohen, to persevere in the endless struggle to bring prosperity and well-being to all Canadians. According to another of my New Brunswick predecessors, we are unusually well placed to do that job. Louis J. Robichaud, after serving as Premier of my province, served in this chamber for 27 years. As I was preparing my own remarks, I was curious about what that distinguished politician and close friend had to say as he took his leave from the Senate, colleagues, on October of 2000, just a year before I arrived here. Senator Robichaud made a point on his final day of describing what makes our chamber special. He said, "Those who support an elected Senate are, in my judgment, making a mistake. Because if it were thus, senators would become even more keen politicians than they already are. Senators are the balance in Parliament, because they are appointed without being elected and for a period of time. They are capable of reflection and are not afraid of expressing their opinions at any time. They are not blinded by purely political considerations." So a chamber whose members are less partisan and more independent than those in the House of Commons has long been a feature of this Senate. It's not a recent development or a recent discovery. As Senator Cohen described, we are a unique community, but we are also a small community. Our other legislative bodies measure their membership in the hundreds. Our House of Commons has 338 members. And in the parliament on which we are modelled, the mother of all parliaments in the UK, the House of Commons has 650 members, and the House of Lords, 793 Lords. By contrast, our normal working complement here is usually something under 100. Our job is to ensure as best we can the well-being and prosperity of more than 37 million of our fellow citizens. That is a sobering responsibility for such a small group. Our rules ensure that not a single one of us can be ignored or taken for granted as we do that job here in the Senate. It has always been expected that we would work together in a collegial fashion, setting aside our personal and partisan differences for the greater good. Do we have differences? Of course we have differences. There have always been differences of opinion in this chamber about what's best for Canadians. And those differences will undoubtedly continue. Those differences exist because when we arrive in this chamber, we bring to the chamber our own individual life experiences. For my part, although, as you've heard, I had studied engineering and then law school, my formative years were spent at the Collège Militaire Royal de Saint-Jean and RMC in Kingston, Royal Military College. In the Senate, I was able to build on that experience. In the year that I arrived, the Senate created National Security and Defense Committee and also the Subcommittee on Veterans Affairs. And I was honored to have been given the opportunity to serve on both of those committees. It was also an honor to be a member of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly and to serve as the International Vice President for a term. As parliamentarians, we have a duty not only to our country and people, but also to the people outside our borders to promote democracy and to promote collective action and to enhance every individual's personal security wherever they may be in this world. I arrived in the Senate less than a month following the horrific events of 9/11. Our chamber, through the pre-study technique that was being used, was deeply involved in the design of Canada's immediate legislative response to that terrible event. I was proud to serve on two special committees that were subsequently established to monitor anti-terrorism laws, one in 2004 and one in 2012. The NATO Parliamentary Assembly played an important role with respect to the developing terrorist threat by hosting meetings with other parliamentarians of other NATO countries, there are 29 of them, where we would share best practices and ideas moving forward. Colleagues, we do not live in a silo called Canada. We live in a country where it is a valued and influential member of the international community that gives rise to obligations on the international stage. We may have differences of view about the role we should play, but there are matters where we should have no differences. RMC instilled in its officer cadets when I was there and graduated in 1968. We were taught, among other values, to find truth, duty, and service. These values apply equally to all of us in this chamber as well. We serve the people in order to help make their lives as fulfilling as possible. We have a duty to act truthfully with Canadians, to act with integrity, to do what is both legally and morally right. And if the prefix honorable before our names is to be deserved, we must also act truthfully and with integrity towards one another. In the military, truth and integrity among the members of one's unit is paramount, because without it, the consequences can be fatal. In Parliament, if truth and integrity are compromised, it is the well-being of Canadians that suffer, because instead of focusing on their needs, we become even more preoccupied with our own internal battles. Now, much has been made of the alleged need for fundamental change of our rules and procedures to better reflect the so-called new reality of this chamber, and to make the work here in this chamber more efficient. On 2 occasions, I appeared as a witness before the Modernization Committee, and I invite colleagues who might wish to delve deeper into the subject to review my testimony at that time. But briefly, I ask, would the legislative process here be made more efficient, or could it? And of course, the answer is yes, it could. And would the executive branch of government be pleased with a more efficient Senate to scrutinize the legislation that is sent this way? Of course, the Cabinet would be happy. Of course they would. And what would be the cost to the independence and to the individual authority each of us now possesses as a member of this body, as a member of this small community? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. I fear that the unintended consequences of trying to seek greater efficiency have not been fully explored or appreciated. Or perhaps they are being fully appreciated by some, and for that reason are being encouraged. And that all has to be discovered. But it should be obvious to all of us that sober second thought was never meant to be about efficiency and speed, but about the quality of the result. And in any event, that is a matter for the Senate of the future, and I leave it to you to grapple with those challenges. However, I am concerned about the time and energy and resources we are devoting to introspection about our institution and about how it works. As I have described, we are a small community with a sobering responsibility for the well-being of 37 million people. Canadians rightly expect us to focus on their living environment and not our working environment. That should be our priority here. When I entered the Senate more than 18 years ago, I did so as a member of the governing Liberal Party and caucus at that time. But much has changed since I arrived, and I now leave the Senate as a proud member and leader of the Progressive Senate Group. This group was created to gather together progressive-thinking, liberal-minded senators who believe that government has an important role to play in the lives and well-being of all Canadians. The Progressives are inspired by the Algonquin word mamidoswin, which means meeting place and walking together. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms lists the freedom of association as a fundamental freedom. That like-minded individuals would wish to associate with one another in a legislative body, that they would wish to meet together and walk together in pursuit of a common vision of what constitutes the public good is, in my view, a good thing. This is how legislative bodies the world over function, so long as they're not a one-party state. So I am pleased that the new progressive group was created, and I'm equally pleased that my good friend, Senator Jane Cordy, has agreed to take on Senator Dennis Dawson will be her deputy leader, and Senator Terry Mercer will be the whip for our group.
She'll be taking care of me.
Je voudrais conclure.
I would like to conclude today by first thanking the Right Honourable Jean Chrétien.
I also thank colleagues on both sides of the chamber for your many years of camaraderie and friendship. You have made my life here interesting and sometimes challenging. I wish to thank all staff members who professionally and loyally assisted me over the many years. Particularly Cindy McCaver, who's been with me throughout. Thank you. And Len Kuchar, who will be retiring. I'm not sure if events had been somewhat different if he would be retiring, but he is. After more than 35 years here, he started working in the Senate as a messenger. And he worked with Ellen J. McEachern and all leaders of the Liberal caucus, virtually all, throughout those 35 years. So if you ever get a chance, and go quickly because we won't be there much longer, but a chance to visit his office upstairs, you'll see the photographs of all the people that he served with. Thank you, Len. And finally, I'd like to thank all of the table officers. Pages, you're great. Chaz, or is it Chase? You keep after the pages. And Denis, I know you've got a great team with you, and I'm sure you'll continue to do the great work along with our speaker that you have in the past. Thank you all very much. Jay.
Declaration de Senator. Senator Statement, Senator Platt.